This session's called Fuck You Money. What's the point of that? Exactly. What's the point of having fuck you money if you can't say fuck you occasionally? We should have had 4 chairs. Unfortunately, Dave Portney can't join us. Fuck you, Dave. Anyway, firstly, let's bring out Francis Ngannou. Give a huge round of applause. All right, next up, the podcast godfather himself, Mr. Adam Curry. Come on! And to moderate this fuck you session, it's none other than Mr. Max Keiser. Woo!
Kelly! Kelly! Boo Kelly! It's right on. How's everybody doing? Woo! Have you been sufficiently orange pilled? I've got some extra orange pills right here for y'all. There you go. All the orange pills you need. All right. We're here on the Fuck You Money panel. Francis and Adam. Let's get into it. So, gentlemen, we're into an age of the cancel culture. Adam, to you, it seems as though we're breaking out of the age of cancel culture. You've got now Elon buying into Twitter. You've got Louis C.K. just won an award at the Grammys. Yeah. So are we getting out of the cancel culture age, and is Bitcoin part of that?
Well, you mentioned 2 centralized things, Twitter and the Grammys, so I don't know if that can be considered a breakout. I would also like to remind people about a year ago, Elon did some kind of weird shit with Bitcoin. Wasn't very helpful at the time, so I don't know why people would be so excited about him fixing Twitter. ActivityPub, lots of decentralized services people are using. But podcasting, Dave Jones and I saw almost 3 years ago when Apple started deplatforming podcasts, that they were no longer a good steward of podcasting, which was always designed to be decentralized by design, and you don't need any service to be a podcaster, and they were kind of capturing that. So we created podcastindex.org, completely independent. It's also distributed. There's thousands of copies of the entire database. So that stopped the deplatforming from podcasting, as there's now 15 new apps, newpodcastapps.com. But we needed to go to the next piece, which is the financial deplatforming. People are getting deplatformed off of PayPal, off of Patreon. And by the way, I wouldn't cheer too much for Russians having their boats and planes and apartments taken away, because it's Russians today, there'll be other rich people next. And then it'll be less rich people.
Right.
So we designed value for value streaming payments on podcasting. And so you literally, while you're listening to a podcast, you can send any amount of Satoshis to that podcaster in real time, wallet to wallet, peer to peer, no middleman. We're doing about 70,000 transactions a month now. We're seeing over 1.5 million Satoshis flowing through the system a day, 6,000 podcasts. So I would say we're well on our way to completely stopping any form of cancel culture as it comes to literal free speech in podcasting.
Right on.
Impressive. A lot of people are in this, by the way. A lot of people have been working on this.
Right, so that sounds fantastic. Now, Francis, let's talk about Cameroon, where you're from. And
Africa.
From Africa. And you've got the Bitcoin revolution is enabling all kinds of people to, I guess you could say, escape the fiat money, escape a lot of things that have been going for quite some time. Give us an update on that.
Yeah, I do believe in Bitcoin, and I think this could be a future of the finance and trading in Africa. You know, because we have we have a lot of problem of transaction of trading based on our currency, which is always backed up by some different country, European country, and
France.
France.
Let's just call
mostly,
it. Yeah,
yes,
right.
Because there's 14 countries.
They control the money, right?
Yes, there's
Yeah.
14 countries in Africa who doesn't have like their own currency. They just use French money. French just make
Right.
their money and be the guarantee. So their money is not backed up by gold, even though if it was, the thing is like you can do a transaction with gold easily. You need to move to carry a gold and then travel somewhere, go to give it to somebody physically. But now with the Bitcoin, you can sit at home and pay your supplier wherever is it. So that's why I think this is going to be a very good thing for Africa in general. For business, financially, to help business grow there, and to make things easy. Like once again, we are talking about decentralizing. It's like the first time that is the only thing that you can do without nobody has a control on it. Because even a goal, to carry certain amount of gold, you need certain license and this approval, all the paperwork. But with Bitcoin, as long as you have your Bitcoin in your wallet, you can send it to whoever you want, whenever you want, sitting from your couch or laying on your bed or whatever.
Right, and these
right
countries
away.
in Africa, just to trade with each other, it's enormously difficult. And so Bitcoin allows for inter-country African trade quite easily, correct?
Yes, just to trade between this country is very difficult because they make sure, France make sure to divide those countries pretty good to conquer, Like we have the Central Africa, they use franc CFA. The West Africa use franc CFA, who has the same value, but it's different money. We cannot use the same our Central
different
Africa
country,
money
right,
in
right,
West Africa, and West Africa cannot use their own in
Man, you're
Central
almost,
Africa.
you're almost as messed up as the rest of the world.
Oh, I think we are more messed up.
Yeah.
We are very messed up. So our currency is not even recognized in
In the
IMF.
country. Right.
So every transaction has to go to France. So it's not only centralizing one country, but it's centralizing almost the entire continent.
No one really talks about that, but it's kind of weird that France controls the money of 14 African countries.
People trying to talk, but all the
okay.
time they get shut up. They make.
All right, well, meanwhile, in Europe, the EU and the International Monetary Fund, they are struggling against Bitcoin and Bitcoin adoption. They are suggesting, Christine Lagarde was saying it's an escape hatch. If people use Bitcoin, they won't be under the auspices of this fiat money world. But of course, that's not a bug, that's a feature. That's a good thing. That we are escaping IMF and these other organizations. But Adam, this is opening up something of a culture war because it seems like the pushback from the institutions is to double down on, I guess you could call it cultural Marxism, this kind of liberal orthodoxy where private ownership is condemned. And money is essentially that of a province of the state, and we need to worship the state. Now, you've been in the culture wars for decades, going all the way back to the MTV days. Would you say that's a fair characterization? And where would you put us on that scale of getting as close as possible now to a Maoist cultural revolution, which is what we're having now in America?
I like the title of this session, Fuck You Money, because the meaning has changed. Back in the MTV days, rock and roll days, everybody got a Rolex. I got fuck you money. Today, I got money that I can send to you and no one can touch. That's real fuck you money. I got money that you can send to me and I can receive. That's fuck you money. If it's one Satoshi, it doesn't matter. Now, the next thing we need to understand...
And most importantly, money that nobody decide on the value of your money. The money that...
They can't change it overnight.
Yeah, they can change overnight.
Right on.
The money that doesn't feel the inflation.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
He appreciates. And I think this is like the best version of fuck you money.
So there's one other thing that we need to understand. In the old culture, it has always been who has the biggest audience, the most listeners, the most likes, the most followers. This is fucking irrelevant. What is relevant is the audience or community that you collect around you. And that can be a podcast, but now in Texas we have the Beef Initiative. So we're connecting retailers and just human beings with ranchers. So you get to know your rancher, you get your beef directly from the rancher, you pay the rancher in Bitcoin. We're doing it with vegetables, we're doing it with restaurants. So we're building networks that are meaningful, connected through Bitcoin. And so when you, as my example, podcasting, I don't need millions and millions of listeners. I need to pay rent. And I need to communicate with the audience and say, do you like this? What is the show worth to you? Send that value to me so I can keep going. And that's where we have to let go. Andy Warhol's dream came true, or his vision, 15 minutes of fame. And now everyone's getting deplatformed. He could have probably predicted that. So it's more important that you build your own community. It is, by the way, the only way you will get out of the coming collapse is Bitcoin and your community.
Right. You talk about entertainment industry and economy at large that's driven by the entertainment industry, where ratings are king. It's a ratings-driven economy. And that's true also in the fiat money world. If I have a lot of fiat money, I can go to Washington and I can buy a senator. I can buy a congressman. It's incredibly corrupt. It happens every single day. With Bitcoin, that's not the case. If
I have a node, therefore I have a vote.
You have a node, you have a vote. So that will fundamentally change not only politics and finance, but the way you find ourselves, even as human beings, communicating with each other and how we would evolve, you could say, into the future. Do you see that happening where you've got almost an evolutionary step change?
Yes. Oh, yes. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. When you meet someone, when that person says, I'm a Bitcoiner, we play by a lot of the same rules. I don't care where you're from. We've never met before. We have a connection. Why? Because we're Bitcoiners. That's deep, and it's philosophical. I'm not quite sure how it works in the brain.
Community.
It's a community, and it's a global community. And I was walking through the hall, and someone stopped me, and it's like, I know immediately who this person, what they're about, to a certain degree. That's very cultural. That's crazy cultural in the scope of certainly entertainment. What people talk about or what connects them. And I think that's a big thing that we need to recognize.
Yeah. So with Francis, in the last 20, 30 years, we lived in a world where the United States culture is dominant around the world. In other cultures, African cultures, Asian cultures, have been secondary to the pervasive American culture. With Bitcoin becoming a world reserve currency, do you see an opportunity not only for these economies to improve, but for these cultures in Africa to become more global and have greater reach and to be more prevalent?
Obviously, with Bitcoin first, is every country gonna have a currency that is easy to deal with, to do business with. There is a lot of business, for example, in Africa, we wanted to do a business with a company here, but the problem is this transaction. How to make those transactions is pain in the ass, how they say, And one of the upsides of Bitcoin, which is very important in Africa, in America, and all around the world, not many people face those challenges, but you have to understand that in Africa, 70% of people, they don't even have bank account. They can't even have bank account because they don't have enough money. Their revenue is not enough to be paying fees on their bank account. And when you go to the bank in Africa to open a bank account, you have to prove certain revenue, and you have to be approved by the bank to have a bank account. So many people, they don't even try because even the fees for those accounts is more for them. It's like what they can feed their family with in 1 week. So they don't do that. But with Bitcoin, it's something that everybody can do. You don't need somebody approval. You go on your phone, download your app, put your money, and then just start to trade. And you have a bank account. You have something that you can buy on internet, do your e-market, everything without somebody controlling your money or charging you for fees, or you don't need somebody blessing to have an account on something, you know. And this is a huge, huge problem in Africa because so many people don't have a nice job, so they cannot afford a bank account, so they could not participate in so many things. As soon as something is like online, you have to use a credit card or a PayPal, they're out of that business. They count themselves out, which is like a lot of opportunity that they are missing, you know. And I think with things like Bitcoin, you know, is a life changing. You can see like with a digital all those digital platforms coming, a lot of artists now has a opportunity because they don't need like a label to produce them, you know. So it's those kind of opportunity that Bitcoin is bringing too.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to touch on. So
yeah.
the American hegemony is this cultural. What I love when France, when they opened up Euro Disney in France, the French press referred to it as a cultural Chernobyl. You know, that it was not well received. But with economic oppression comes cultural oppression. But with micropayments in Bitcoin and second layer and third layer comes cultural expression. And so is this, I think what we're saying here is that this very, very rich African culture will have a chance now to organize, monetize itself, and spread in new ways. And that would seem to be very exciting.
Yeah, because they can trade and do their thing abroad easily. So yes, that will also help to like expand their culture, to participate in everything. There will not need for other people approval for that. You know, like with the banking system now is very complicated, basically for African, because not only African, we don't have a currency, but everything that we have to do now, even a wire transfer, he has to go to a French bank to pay the supplier, wherever the supplier is in the world.
Right,
whether it's in China or in the US, he has to go to France. But for them to control those markets, they make it very complicated to pay a supplier in China, which is who has a better rate, better product. So what do? You're forced now to just rely on like a French market. You can't even expand. I mean, and yeah, I'm talking about buying. I'm not talking even about selling your own product. So with your wallet being controlled by somebody, you don't have nothing to say. You can't control anything. They decide how much you sell your product. They decide how much you buy, whatever you want to buy. So at the end of the day, you're just working to somebody.
So Bitcoin fixes this.
Absolutely. You have your product. You make your price. Somebody want to buy, he buys it. If not,
well, we know in
know?
Nigeria, which is a very entrepreneurial country, the economy, thanks to Paxville and other companies, are doing very, very well. I wanted to change gears for a second here. So, Adam, when you read the news and you see what was happening in Canada with the truckers, and that the state suddenly came down and exerted authoritarian dictatorial powers of the Canadian government to subject their own citizens to cruelty and harsh penalties for freedom of speech. I mean, coming from Canada, that was not on my bingo card. I thought of maple sugar and the Toronto Maple Leafs, not a dictator enforcing draconian authoritarianism in Canada, and yet that's what we saw.
So we saw a lot of things in the past 2 months. We've seen Russia being deplatformed from the SWIFT network, which is very interesting if you start to learn how archaic really the SWIFT network is and what it is, and it used to work with faxes, and like, wow, this is a really dumb system, because that's not how Bitcoin works. It makes no sense. But the deplatforming, financial deplatforming, and the House of Representatives in the US yesterday just passed a domestic terrorism law, which is pretty much based on the Patriot Act for non-domestic terrorists. There are going to be 3 organizations, and you speak against the government and you can be deplatformed or arrested or whatever. But the first thing they'll do is try to deplatform you from a platform. If you're speaking, the next one is the finances. my wife and I immediately bought $10,000 extra Bitcoin, as much as we could. We're like, we need to protect. She's like, how do we protect our money? What we've been doing. So let's buy some more. For this very, very reason, because it can happen. It's clear. If it can happen to sweet Canadians, it can happen to anybody.
Yeah.
Right? Make no mistake.
Yeah.
That's true.
Well, I think that realization now is becoming clear. Those people in the Bitcoin community that have been talking about this for a while, that it's unconfiscatable, this is going to be important, and there'll come a time when this becomes more important. We're at that moment now, and this is driving adoption. You know, here's a kind of a philosophical question. Did Bitcoin, is it reacting to the chaos, or is it causing the chaos?
That's a good one.
In other words, well, you see, I
think Bitcoin was expecting the chaos is probably more like it. Bitcoin was there, ready for it. I mean, we know, if you look at the Genesis block, I mean, it literally says, hey, you know, Gordon Brown screwed the pound. That rhymes. So it's clear what it was for, and now we're, you know, I do the No Agenda podcast, and 5 years ago I was talking about a couple to No Agenda. There you go. I was talking about central bank digital currencies, and you know, like conspiracy theory. And now it's here, and it's much further than we think in many countries. Probably, you know, there's multiple proposals. So Bitcoin was always here, almost like something in nature, you know. This, and which of course it truly is. It's something natural that evolved naturally and was there to save those who wish to be saved.
Yeah, well said. You know, talking about urgency to buy Bitcoin, this politician, Norma Torres, just a couple of days ago said, quote, El Salvador has made Bitcoin legal tender. The U.S. must have a plan to protect the U.S. dollar and America's financial system in case this idea spreads. So here you have...
But Max, just help me understand, because I learned everything I know about Bitcoin and money from you and from Dennis Parker and from Roy Schein, from other people. But when you look at the Green New Deal, a global agenda, which entire mission is to do away with petroleum products, is that not by definition an assault on the petrodollar? This is, I mean, to me, it's as clear as day. It's going to go away the way we know it, and they're going to morph this into, you know, some complete scriptable central bank digital currency.
Right. Well, they don't see how kicking Russia off SWIFT is an existential threat to the dollar, but they think a $20 to $30 billion economy in Central America adopting Bitcoin is a threat to the dollar. So that tells me that this woman, who's an American politician, has her head so far
they're full of shit. They're completely full of shit.
Brain dead.
Yeah.
She's effectively brain dead.
Yeah.
So you have a president that's brain dead. You have congressmen that are brain dead. You have senators that are brain dead, and they're financially illiterate, and they're telling us what about Bitcoin. And meanwhile, we're just buying Bitcoin because we don't want to go down the path of being brain dead asshole American politicians who don't know their ass from their elbow.
Yeah.
Right? Fuck them.
One day after...
Let's fight. Let's do it. You're in a compromised state. I can win this.
I'm still the baddest man on planet.
You're right on. Right on.
All right. I believe you. I'm not going to risk that.
Since there's a moment here, Max, if you'd like to support your favorite podcast, go to newpodcastapps.com. If you have the Lightning Network capability, if you've never used the Lightning Network, I suggest the Breeze app, B-R-E-E-Z. It'll help you get going. It's a beautiful podcast player. If you're a podcaster, go to podcasterwallet.com, get started today, and join the revolution.
Yeah, thank you for that advertisement.
I came from Texas.
Well-positioned. Now, contrast this to, this is a statement from President Bukele. Quote, what has been called by international organizations as the Bitcoin experiment is nothing more than the world watching how mass adoption changes a country's economy. If it's for the good, it's game over for fiat money. El Salvador is the spark that ignites the real revolution.
Yeah.
Right? That's what's happening in Central America, is a real revolution, and in the U.S., but I worry because when I hear American politicians, with a couple of exceptions, but for the most part, they are extraordinarily behind the curve on this.
The Constitution is a great document. We've gotten far away from it. Once we figure out how to build new networks based upon Bitcoin as a community or Bitcoin as an actual network, we're going to get to a place where we actually figure out, we can elect people who aren't idiots. We can actually learn how to do that, but we're not there yet. And the only way is to start local. My generation screwed up a lot for millennials. We were making money, having a good time. We weren't paying attention to who was getting on the school board and city council. Those were losers. You couldn't get a better gig. And now we see what's happened. So we will get there, but I think the everything flows from finance. It's that way in the quote-unquote fiat world. It'll all flow from finance in the Bitcoin world, and we'll learn. We'll get there.
So, Francis, when you meet other folks in your business, how do you tell them about Bitcoin? What's the first thing you say to kind of orange pill them or get them interested? What's the pitch?
Well, first of all, I'm just learning about Bitcoin. It's been a long process, to understand all the Bitcoin, the NFT, the metaverse, and.
Well, that's all shit, but I'm talking about Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So you can forget about NFTs and all that other stuff because that's for
this is lesson one,
in
Francis.
California to steal all their money.
Lesson one, NFTs.
Yeah, but it's very interesting because when you talk to some people, they don't believe it yet,
Right.
and those who have do a little bit of research understands it, and
The more you know, the more you like it.
yeah, the more you know, the more you like it, and the less you know, the less you like it.
Cool, man.
So it's very important.
Jesus.
So that's why I think it's also very important to keep educated people about it, people who doesn't know, and that's also the reason why I think it will be great if we can have a Bitcoin conference in Africa sometime in summer, because I think
We'll go.
high
You
people
wanna go?
too need to be educated
All right, I'll
about
go.
the Bitcoin.
Let's do it.
Hell yeah.
I'm ready. Anyway, gentlemen, thanks so much. I think this was a very informative panel.
Thank you,
And now turn it back over to Peter McCormick.
So maybe I'll have you there, Max, for the African Bitcoin conference.
I'm totally ready to get down there. I'm ready.
Awesome.
Let's do it. All right.
Let's go.
Bitcoiners, welcome back to the Marathon Desk hosted by Bitcoin Magazine. I'm CK Snarks, Managing Director of Bitcoin Magazine. We have Khalil Roundtree, we have Alex McShane, and we have BTC Sessions. What an incredible panel. Really excited to dive into it. I think the line that really stuck with me was Francis at the end. He said, with Bitcoin, the more you know, the more you like it. And I immediately said, the exact opposite is true with fiat. The more you know about fiat money, the more you hate it. Khalil, let's go to you. Obviously new to the Bitcoin space, a fighter in UFC. What was it like watching Francis talk about Bitcoin that way?
What I want to say is that I have been so inspired by Francis the past couple of days, just being here with him, watching the panel. I'm inspired. And every time I see him speak and just about his country and knowing his story, it makes me appreciate and like Bitcoin so much more, because I see the freedom that he speaks of. I see the freedom for his people to be able to not have so many obstacles in order to really lift his country up. And him as a leader, that's how I see him after this weekend. He is trying to free his people, and I think Bitcoin is the way.
Wow, powerful words. Alex, you want to jump in?
Yeah, my takeaway, Francis, 70% unbanked, he said, in sub-Saharan Africa because they can't afford to pay the banking fees. I think we've all been there, watched your savings depreciate. You have to pay to access your own money. Even here in the States, Francis said, this could be the future of finance in sub-Saharan Africa. And I would revise that to say that Bitcoin is the only viable option to fight off these centralized fiat currencies that are fractionalizing and, tearing society apart out there.
Yeah, I mean, again, as we were kind of chatting, we were saying, Bitcoin brings people together, it creates community, and fiat divides. BTC Sessions, you were part of what was happening in Canada just a few months ago. They brought that up during the panel.
Yeah.
What's your takeaway?
It speaks to the fact that the panel, Bitcoin is FU money, right? It's true because you can't stop it. And if anything that I've gleaned over the past couple of months, things got super dicey. And the government, the massive overreach, and how quickly all of this went down in a couple of weeks. And at the end of the day, There were missteps. Things could have gone better. But at the end of the day, of all fundraising methods, Bitcoin was the only one that got there to the intended recipients. 70% of all Bitcoin that was donated, which was 1/1,000,000th of all Bitcoin that will ever exist, got to its intended recipients.
And I'd add on to that, as Adam Curry said, Bitcoin, I mean, this is the only way to get out of the coming collapse. I think with Canada, this is just a small example of how useful it can be in circumventing regulators and people who want to capture your money.
Something that I thought was interesting, they were talking about Bitcoin is fuck you money, Bitcoin is money without permission. I like to say Bitcoin is money that actually works. I mean, Khalil, again, I want to go back to you.
Yeah. So one of the things that stood out the most is just hearing like easier trade, less hassle, peer-to-peer. I think mixing that with Bitcoin is fuck you money, it's like, yeah, it really in a non like aggressive way, it's like, yeah, like it is fuck you money because fuck you to the guys and peer-to-peer community, like let's be together. I can't help but say enough. I'm inspired. I'm very inspired by being here.
And the peer-to-peer thing that you tapped on, they were talking about streaming sats, individual artists trying to get away from censorship, peer-to-peer individuals listening to podcasts, streaming sats directly to content creators. I've personally used it myself. It's incredible. It's a great tool, and I can't wait to see it proliferate everywhere.
I'm thrilled that podcasts are going to be censorship resistant. We're seeing a lot of kind of consolidation and censorship in media and speech today. It's scary. We got 30 seconds left. I want to kind of get a last word from each of the panelists. Let's start with you, Khalil.
I think just being here is amazing, and I'm going to continue to learn, and I'm going to continue to just enter into this world and adopt and collect and have Bitcoin.
All right, collect some Bitcoin. We call it stacking sats. Alex.
I would say, what do you do when the ruling class is functionally acting against you? They don't have your best interests in mind. Buy Bitcoin.
Yeah. The privacy guys were right, and with better privacy tools, Bitcoin becomes better fuck you money.
Oh, man, the privacy guys were right. We're going to have to talk about privacy later, but y'all, Bitcoin is fuck you money. Bitcoin is money that works. This was the Marathon Desk. Make sure to subscribe, make sure to like, make sure to stay tuned for Bitcoin Payments Revolution.